The risk of flooding and its effect on human and economic activities are one too many to ignore, and the challenge continues to pose serious concerns. In the 2024 Annual Flood Outlook, some areas in 31 states are categorized as high flood risk locations, while others in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory are to experience moderate flood. Now, the level of flooding in this category is expected to be high in terms of impact on the environment. Beyond that, there is also the challenge of food production, food security, and displacement, as people are rendered homeless with property destroyed. Disasters, no doubt, are inevitable, but there is also the man-made factors like non-existence or blocked drainages in flood-prone areas. Averting the damage and related challenges associated with this perennial flooding cannot be ignored, despite adamant nature of those who remain in their ancestral homes, even with the glaring, looming danger of the flood. While the stakeholders continue to lend their voices on sensitization to avert the impact of flooding on livelihoods, what are the control measures being implemented to mitigate the disaster? And what more can be done to achieve better results at the federal and sub-nationals? On Weekend File tonight, we will be looking at ways of averting challenges of perennial flooding in Nigeria. And our guest is Engineer Dilichukwu Joe Etigwe, Director, Erosion, Flood and Coastal Zone Management Department, Federal Ministry of Environment. We also have situation reports from our correspondents across the country. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ruth Aguela. First, we begin with the news. President Bola Tinubu has inaugurated 2 roads in the Guzape district of the Federal Capital Territory, named after 2 renowned Nigerian prolific writers, J.P. Clark and Chinwe Achebe. The inauguration of this project, which is located at Guzape District Lot 2, is the 9th in the series of presidential projects inauguration lined up to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of this administration by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. Let's hear more from Aisha Uba Ali.
According to the Executive Secretary FCDA Shehu Hadi Ahmed, the provision of engineering infrastructure Lot 2 district was created out of necessity, and the 3.2-kilometer road is to provide for commercial and residential purposes as well as park areas. FCT Minister Nyesom Wike says the project, awarded in 2003 at the cost of 14 billion naira, was later reviewed to 18 billion naira as of May 2023.
Because of your passion, because of your doggedness to make sure that projects must not be abandoned. Government is a continuum. You have to make sure that these projects are completed, and with our financial arrangement, that's what we have succeeded, because you gave us that room. I have told people who care to hear, since I assumed office in August 21st, 2023, we have never one day interfered in our work. Never one day have you called me that this is what you want, this is not what you have. Never one day.
President Bola Tinubu says the renewed hope agenda, which is people-centered, is not only looking at infrastructure, but an all-encompassing initiative to touch the lives of Nigerians positively.
Development that is focused on the people, for the economic prosperity, the benefits of the whole. Is what should reside in us.
The engineering infrastructure, the president, however, opined, is a unique inauguration and a landmark achievement. In Abuja, Aisha Uba Ali, NTA News.
The tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage had concluded negotiation with government and the organized private sector, agreeing on the sum of 62,000 naira new national minimum wage and organized labor standing on 250,000 naira. Recommendation of the committee will be presented to President Bola Tinubu for consideration and presentation to the National Assembly. Joseph Otsen reports.
After the leadership of the organized labor signed an agreement with representatives of the federal government to return to the negotiation table on new national minimum wage, negotiations resumed at the tripartite committee on new national minimum wage last Tuesday. Since then, it has been intense engagements lasting 6 to 8 hours at times, with parties breaking into clusters to dialogue on critical issues before reconvening back to the committee of the whole to make presentations.
The organized private sector and the federal government and the government have agreed on a figure 62,000. The organized labor is still asking for 250,000. But at the end of the day, what is very important is that there is this conviviality. We are talking, is a discussion, and no hostility anymore.
The sum of 250,000 naira should be the what would be okay as the minimum wage. So we forward it to Mr. President, and Mr. President will make a recommendation to the National Assembly, and we'll keep pushing to ensure that we have a wage that is that stands the test of time.
And the recommendation today came as a result of deeper understanding and deeper studies of all the economic indices, the current inflation situation, the state of the economy, affordability, ability, capability, sustainability.
An inclusive democratic process with a smooth landing at the end.
This is a process where you bring your best argument, and the Labour have participated, and they have, of course, presented a different view, a different argument, and both views are going to Mr. President. But that is the beauty of this.
And then having come to this end, I believe that we have to move forward. So I'm satisfied.
Now that the tripartite committee has completed its work and the President is expected to present an executive bill to the National Assembly, the ball is now in the court of the 10th Assembly, who can now reduce or make an increment on any of the figures. In Abuja, Joseph Otsen, NTA News.
In other news, concerned citizens are seriously condemning the wanton and unrelenting destruction of critical infrastructure of the nation by vandals, as seen in a recent viral video depicting the removal of iron accessories binding the Second Niger Bridge. They say this is nothing but economic sabotage and must be resisted by every Nigerian. Onye Joshua Ifeanyi will tell us more.
The joy of the citizens, especially those of the South-South and Southeast who ply the bridge, knew no bounds as economic and regular daily life became better. With the bridge completed and inaugurated by the immediate past president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, it is expected that the citizens will hold in high esteem basic provisions, maintain and protect them.
Is very dangerous. Before tomorrow, you know go see them. Now person they come go sell them.
Those things that those guys did now is not good and it's not proper, because as they do that now, others might follow them and be doing it.
Anybody that collect the iron, they're criminals. That big one, at the center of the road, they collect it the other time.
Matthew is the controller, Federal Ministry of Works, Delta State.
The activities of those vandals is a very discouraging situation. But the ministry have responded swiftly to the issue. The vandals, they actually removed the component of the expansion joint, but they could not cut it because that component is very heavy. However, what they removed did not affect the integrity of the bridge.
Apart from the dismantling of the iron accessories, some of the road users also mentioned the theft of wires inserted in the solar panels used in illuminating the bridge to avert accidents and criminal activities. Onyinye Joshua Ifeanyi, NTA News.
The Ecowas Court of Justice sitting in Abuja has ordered the Republic of Togo to pay 15 million CFA as damages to one Al-Hassan Dibasi Fadia, a former employee of Pan-African Airline, the Lomé-based Askai Airlines, in a judgment presided by Justice Edward Amoako Asante. The court cited that the government of Togo violated Article 7, subsection 2 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights in his dismissal. Mohamed Rabiu Ali reports.
The three-member panel, led by Justice Edward Amoako Asante, reviewed the case of Al-Hassan, a former pilot who was sacked by Lomé-based Airlines in 2021 on a retroactive ministerial order, alleged to have fraudulently obtained a flying license, falsifying his flight logbooks. After accusations and counter-accusations on the action taken against the applicant under ministerial order, the court said it was a violation of his rights. The Republic of Togo argued that the order was simply a procedural law passed to implement existing provisions of Civil Aviation Code 2016, which applied on the applicant, including disciplinary proceedings. The presiding judge cited a decision of the European Court of Human Rights that the protection against retroactive application of laws applies to provisions defining offences. The penalties, he insists, do not in principle reflect the immediate application of procedural rules, including to pending cases. The court therefore ordered the Republic of Togo to pay 15 million CFA as damages to applicant and to take steps not later than 4 months from the date of judgment to reverse the expunge from its official records the disciplinary actions taken against the applicant in violation of his rights. The court also dismissed other grounds of the suit provided by the applicant asserted for his right to equality and equal protection of the law. On his dismissal by employer, the Askai Airline, and the alleged breach of his right to work, the court says the applicant has not been able to convince and establish the link. Therefore, the respondent did not violate the applicant's right to work, contrary to Article 15 of the African Charter. In Abuja, Mohamed Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
Saudi Arabia says about 1.2 million pilgrims from across the world performing this year's Hajj will observe their rituals with ease and the highest levels of care and attention. Saudi Minister of Hajj and Umrah Tawfiq Al-Rabia at a press conference in Riyadh stressed the need for pilgrims to adhere to regulations. Tokwe Alabi reports that NACON says Nigerian pilgrims are complying with regulations.
Dhul Hijjah, the 12th month of Islamic lunar calendar, has just started, and it is the time for final Hajj rites, and Saudi Arabia has harnessed and mobilized all resources to ensure the success of this year's Hajj, including over 2,500 trainings for about 150,000 workers and leaders of pilgrim groups conducted in multiple languages. Saudi's Minister of Hajj and Umrah, Tawfiq Al-Rabia, highlighted efforts made by the custodian of the holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, to ensure pilgrims perform their rituals with ease, while emphasizing the need for pilgrims to comply with Hajj regulations. We launched an international campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of violating Hajj regulations, fake campaigns, and electronic fraud practices. This campaign spans more than 20 countries globally. Meanwhile, the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, says pilgrims are observing their rituals comfortably and orderly without violating Saudi regulations.
We have been doing our best, inshallah, and we are also getting cooperation from the Saudi authorities. And so far, we have also been getting cooperation with the pilgrims. So that is what makes it very smooth and seamless.
Approximately 1.2 million pilgrims from various countries around the world are performing this year's Hajj, including about 65,000 Nigerians, in Saudi Arabia's long-standing commitment to serve the guests of Allah. Tokbe Alabi, NTA News.
In line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu, the National Troupe of Nigeria is utilizing the power of culture to promote national integration through cultural shows that showcases the unity in the nation's diversity. Amin Umar reports that the nation's cultural contingents were in Kano for a two-day engagement in the Northwest tagged Akwe Mafita.
Creative art has been a part of the literature in Kano. This dance drama, which portrays the current situation in Nigeria, especially the Northwest, is part of the community theater, an initiative of the National Troupe of Nigeria. The aim is to build hope among Nigerians that the nation shall rise again under the watch of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
And the idea is to make them feel that government has an empathy. It feels what they are feeling and raise their hope.
For me, as a theatre practitioner of 2 decades now, theatre is a way to promote morals. If only our minds will be open to it as a people and as individuals.
Beyond the message contained in the performances, the artistic director, Kaltume Blamagana, believes theatre has the potential to grow the nation's economy through jobs creation and revenue generation.
I think employment is in the picture. People can now be aware of these talents, and then even the music, the dances, you can teach a lot, you can do collaborations.
The two-day engagement in Kano was part of the tour throughout the nation as a tool for social mobilization. In Kano, Aminu Umar, NTA News.
A book which captures how media enthusiasts, public speakers, and inspiring journalists can bring out the best in them, titled Command Your Stage, authored by former staff of the Nigerian Television Authority, Bimbo Oloyede, has been presented to the public. Diana Ajale, who attended the presentation, will tell us more about it now.
From the questions, what is presentation? Who needs presentation training? Breaking barriers of effective communication, to no pain, no gain. The book is also described as a Big Bang theory on professionalism.
The author explores and utilizes English language and choice of words with the dexterity of a seasoned literary colossus.
This book will help others who are thinking of entering that industry or improving their performance.
Now, what Bimbo is trying to take across is a skill that enables you not just communicate and get your views across, but win over the audience.
It covers all areas of life's endeavors.
The author, Command Your Stage, Bimbo Oloyede, says her literary adventure aims at reframing communication skills in Nigeria.
Now is the time for you young people to have a different understanding of education. You must learn how to articulate ideas clearly and confidently so that you are empowered to thrive in the workplace and to make a meaningful contribution to nation building.
Bimbo Oloyede is a veteran with vast experience and insights, a speaker and trainer who has been a broadcast professional for nearly 5 decades and the first woman to cast network news on Nigerian Television Authority. In Lagos, Diana Ajale, NTA News.
That's one book I should lay my hands on, right? We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be discussing averting the challenges of perennial flooding in Nigeria. To stay. Good to have you there with us. And before we begin our conversation on averting the challenges of perennial flooding in Nigeria, we'll bring you some reports. Some states over the years have remained perpetually flooded because they are believed to be situated in areas referred to as the high flood risk areas and moderate risk zones. Averting the dangers, or rather damages and related challenges associated with this perennial flooding cannot be ignored, despite hesitations to act by those who remain constantly flooded. Charles Alpha, in this report, takes a look at the 2024 flood outlook with special focus on causes and impact across sectors of the economy.
Exacerbated by climate change and worsened by human-induced activities, flood, like never before, continues to ravage more communities, washing away anything on its path, especially farmlands and residential buildings.
The rising temperature and the higher temperature increase the ice atmosphere capacity to hold moisture, which leads to heavier and prolonged rainfall.
The annual flood outlook for 2024 report identified 148 local government areas spanning 31 states in Nigeria as high flood risk areas beginning from April to November 2024. These areas include parts of Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Benue, Borno, Cross River, Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, and Imo State. The moderate impact level floods are projected in 249 local government areas in 36 states and the FCT, with specific time frames in parts of 63 local government areas between April, May, and June. 221 local government areas. It also predicts face potential flooding in July, August, and September, while 100 local government areas will be susceptible by October and November 2024. The outlook also reports that flash and urban flooding are expected to affect urban city centers nationwide, including Abakaliki, Abeokuta, Abuja, and Lagos, Asaba, Benin City, Benin Kebbi, and more.
This onset of the rainy season has caused a great damage to rural communities in Adamawa State, particularly in Hon local government.
Addressing perennial flooding in Nigeria, some say requires a proactive and comprehensive approach. And such approach will have to do with a kind of modeling that fosters adequate preparations among states.
Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Well captured, Charles. And you know, Lagos is on the list of the high flood risk areas. For a coastal state like Lagos, flooding is a perennial challenge. Now, residents often go through harrowing experiences whenever it rains, particularly during the rainy season. Diana Ajale in this report examines how sea level rise and other factors contribute to perennial flooding and measures by authorities to mitigate the situation.
Flood accounts for 9 out of every 10 residential disasters across many countries of the world. One of the major factors responsible for this is human influence on the environment, which usually comes with a huge price.
Okiafa, that's towards Janejigo's side. So there was a time that flood came into our house. In fact, it's one of the reasons why we relocated from there, because it was always a normal situation there.
Persistent flooding in parts of Lagos metropolis, for instance, has been attributed to a number of reasons.
People still keep on burning, and then the carbon budget is increasing on a daily basis, so there is no way we will not still keep on fighting with climate change.
And this can go a long way in melting the polar ice cap. The glacier melting will also occur. That will also go a long way in increasing the volume of the water. So when the volume of the water is being increased, then sea level will rise.
As one of the 31 states of the Federation that falls within the high flood risk areas listed in the 2024 Annual Flood Outlook Prediction, Lagos State Government has adopted a multifaceted approach to avert the challenges of perennial flooding in the metropolis, clearing of drainage channels to give way for free flow of flood water, proper implementation of laws, heightened awareness on refuge disposal, and more proactive flood control measures, respondents say should be adopted. Diana Ajale, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests. We have in the studio engineer Dilichukwu Joe Etigbue. He's the director, Erosion, Flood and Coastal Zone Management Department. That's from the Ministry of Environment. Thank you very much for joining us, Engineer Etigbue.
Thank you very much for welcoming me to this engagement this evening.
All right, we're already seeing the signs following the 2024 flood annual outlook. What do you make out of all this? These are challenges we hear every year, and responses from the federal government, even at the subnationals, has been consistent. But the main issue here is averting these challenges we get to see happen, because we see livelihoods, being destroyed.
Thank you. Actually, it has been said, the challenges are there, and we've been having this problem over time. And with time, from what we are seeing, it looks like the tempo is increasing. But you can't rule out the situation in which we find ourselves, especially with the climate change issues resulting to the sea rise in our communities, as well as the issue of flash flooding, urban flooding, as well as river flooding. So in that case, we are looking at the whole issue, knowing fully well that this is a multi-sectorial issue that needed to be addressed, in which case all sectors are called on board to come up with what they have towards this, and the agencies of government are all together trying to solve this problem.
So,
however,
okay,
it is more of control and flood management.
So what is the level of synergy are you getting, especially with engagement with stakeholders, even at the state level? We're seeing some states already taking proactive steps with moves to demolish buildings on river channels, relocate residents, and also, clear blocked drainages. But what synergy are you getting? What's the level of awareness, ongoing, especially for states who are pinned to be high flood risk areas and moderate risk zones?
The synergy is very, very encouraging in the sense that for us at the federal level, we try as much as possible to collaborate with the subnationals, in which case, like the recent events that took place, the Ministry of Environment had talked to the subnationals, wrote them letters telling them to engage in education towards what they need to do in anticipation of the flooding that may occur, in which case people to be advised on what they need to do, at the same time urging them to galvanize and put in place the emergency response issue and their emergency preparedness systems in case such flooding comes up. In that case, all the states that have been identified to be in such a position to witness this flooding have been written, and communication as well as the FCT, they've been informed accordingly, and the reports we are getting is also very, very encouraging. At the same time, we have what we call flood early warning system, in which case we predict the flooding in 5 days interval. And in that case, whatever we get as alert and the system will inform the states. And not only informing them, we also follow the message up to see what they are doing and the level of the flooding. That will also advise us on future actions to be taken.
And talking about actions, let's look at key policy implementation and, of course, enforcement processes. Experts have called for legal framework to strengthen institutions, people who are responsible to take this action when we're talking enforcement. Engineer, you agree with me that most of the times, the residents are adamant to move from their central homes and all of that. What level of enforcement will be carried out?
Yes, it is a natural thing for human beings to resist movement. But then, what is needed seriously in that regard is education. And in that case, telling them the consequences of leaving their abode. However, the subnationals are on top of their game, in which case the residents in those flood-prone areas are urged to move to the higher ground, of which, when there is a cessation of the flooding, they will come back to their abode. So again, enforcement does not really mean using force. You can encourage somebody by telling him or her the consequences of being at the floodplain, at the flood areas, so that he will see and know fully well. In some areas, the response we were getting, like in some areas, we found out that those people are already aware that the flood will come at a particular time. In some places, they have boat, and they also build their houses in such a way that they can move up to the higher state. Then at the end of the recession of the flood, they will come back, because definitely they will expect the flood to come.
It's quite unfortunate. Let's take a break. We'll pick up with the conversation when we return. Good to have you stay with us. The conversation is on averting the challenges of perennial flooding in Nigeria. Engineer Etigbue is our guest. Engineer, I wanted to tell us if you've taken the sensitization a bit further. No sensitization is too much, especially when lives are involved. Are you involving community heads, religious leaders?
Yes. In this issue of flooding, which we all know transcends the whole community and the whole facet of Nigeria, we as a government and in the ministry involve all the stakeholders. We also work towards engaging them, creating awareness, telling them what to expect and what they need to do when there are issues. So we are engaging them, I will say.
Okay, part of the long-term solutions that have been recommended is construction of dams, diversion of water levels, to canals and all of that. But let's look at the short-term, people, community engagement, to make that proactive steps, talking about citizens now, not to throw refuse in drainages, to block where waterways are supposed to flow. What are you getting, as part of this sensitization? What would you tell Nigerians, to be part of this process?
Yes, the government is doing a lot towards that. And like citizens, the awareness as at this time is on the improving level. Because you can see some people are now refraining from dropping their refuse into the waterways and constructed channels. And like I told you, that is multi-sectorial. In as much as we are doing the same, the communities are also engaged, and they're also telling their people not to throw their dustbins and their refuse into the water channel. And with a lot of levels of engagement are doing that, and we're encouraged from what we are saying. But then again, you cannot say that we've gotten it to where we want it to be. And at the same time, it's a work in progress. We're engaging them, and we are getting everybody involved in all ramifications. And no sooner than later, we will have that target where we are looking forward to see the Nigerian and changing the attitude towards using water flow as a conveyance channel to take care of their waste. We are doing that.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Delichuku Joe Etigwe. He's the Director, Erosion, Flood and Coastal Zone Management Department at the Federal Ministry of Environment. Thank you for your insight on Weekend File, and let's hope that everyone involved do the needful.
It's a pleasure.
Let's take a break. We're back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for staying tuned. On Global Update, we have voters in Slovakia, Italy and other countries in the European Union vote on Saturday to elect their representatives in the European Parliament. Just as Danish authorities say, attack on Prime Minister was likely not politically motivated. Let's hear from Uche Ugochukwu.
Slovakia is casting its votes under the shadow of an assassination attempt on populist Prime Minister Robert Fico in May. The country is choosing between representatives of Fico's smear and the main opposition Progressive Slovakia. Also, voters in Italy began casting their ballots to fill a considerable 76 European parliamentary seats, which could help shape its future direction. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and her far-right brothers in Italy are projected to be the big winners. Almost 370 million Europeans can vote in the 27-member bloc, with the largest countries casting their ballots the final day, with projected overall results due late same day. Danish authorities said an attack on Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, which left her shaken with a whiplash injury, was likely not politically motivated. A 39-year-old Polish man who was arrested after hitting the Prime Minister on Friday evening has been remanded in custody until June 20 after appearing before a Copenhagen court. Frederiksen's office said she had been taken to a hospital for a checkup and she is safe, but her Saturday schedule were cancelled. And US and Nigerian soldiers took part in a ceremony marking the withdrawal of US troops from Niger. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
And next will be sports update. And just before we go, why don't we find out how tomorrow's weather will look like?
A warm welcome. Significant weather reports of rainfall were observed over most places within the country in the last 24 hours. However, there are still indications for convective clouds, especially towards the northern region, as moisture depth continues to build up. So Sunday morning is expected to be a bit stable, except for parts of Taraba and Adamawa in the northeast, as well as parts of Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Rivers and Bayelsa, where we expect some morning thunderstorms. But as we progress into the day, with more installation, we have good prospects for rainfall activities across the north to affect some parts of Kebbi, Zamfara, Kaduna, Gombe, Bauchi, Taraba and Borno states. There are also chances for more thunderstorms over the central cities and the southern half of the country. For more updates on marine and temperature forecast, please let's have a look. I remain Joyce Ogunleye, and I'll see you again.
right, now you know to make timely preparations. In the meantime, thank you for being part of Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguele. Good night.